Anand Tandon is joining us now on this leg of the show. Anand, hi, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. One of the stocks of the day today is Infosys, Anand. The street betting on perhaps a buyback now that the cool-off period is over. But your thoughts on the stock?
Well, the sector itself has been under some pressure because of the assumption that, the margins will remain under pressure, and more importantly, the international markets will kind of pressure the sales as well. But, if you look at the rest of the stocks in the market, I don't see why you should be selling out at these levels. Yes, there is no doubt that they are expensive, and so is Infosys compared to its own historical numbers. And given the fact that this year the growth rate is likely to be muted, and therefore you're likely to get mid single digit kind of growth for the bottom line, doesn't make it very attractive. But at the same time, the rest of the market is also grossly overpriced. So while you may get some bit of upside because of this buyback, the fundamental question you have to answer whether you want to be in the sector. I think you should be marginally, you should be there at least, market rate, if maybe marginally underweight, but not much more. See which other companies are going to hold. You will finally come back to companies like TCS, Infosys, maybe HCL Tech, and so on. So from a portfolio perspective, I don't think that there is too much of a debate. From a standalone stock trader's perspective, maybe this is a sector which is going to be weak for some more time.
Okay, but if you are a long-term investor, then perhaps there is nothing to worry. Anand, afternoon. What about Bajaj Auto? Bajaj Auto will go home as the biggest loser for the week, with a cut of close to about 4.5%. Yesterday, CLSA came out with a note where they raised concerns about the export business for Bajaj Auto, which prompted them to lower the target price. Your thoughts on Bajaj Auto?
Well, as the analysts said, there is the main attraction for Bajaj has been the fact that they have an export market. If you look at what they've been doing in the domestic market, many of their launches in the more premium segments have not been particularly a runway success. And at the lower end of the market, they have been losing market share. They got out of scooters. That was almost looks like a strategic mistake. Even the motorcycles, the lower end has not collapsed like they have been predicting. So they have been losing consistent market share. The upside was that they have an international presence, and therefore they will be able to continue to grow on a global scale. If that were to be taken away or were to slow down, obviously you will have to put a cap on where the valuations can go. The domestic market seems to be now somewhat saturated as far as two-wheelers are concerned. The growth rate overall for the industry has also slowed down. Even now we are looking at roughly 60% of what we were a couple of years back. So the outlook for the sector looks a little bleak at this stage.
Okay, the outlook for Bajaj Auto, particularly the export portion, looks a tad bit bleaker. What about Shree Cement? That's been the big mover this week, up 17.5%. Your thoughts on Shree Cement and the entire pack?
So, Shree Cement is the most expensive probably in the whole sector. So I don't know how to comment on that. But the sector itself, will remain in play. It's a strange sector because it doesn't really form a very large part of the index or the economy, and yet it remains in the news for all the wrong reasons, which is that there are spurts at which it tends to move up, and then after that there is a long period over which it goes to sleep. The assumption that because of the fact that we have huge strong cartelization, the fact that you will continue to make serious revenue growth is undercut by the expansion that continues to happen. And I think at this stage there is a new the Adani takeover has also added a little bit more uncertainty in the sector. So it's not a sector that I think you will likely make huge money on unless you try and look for something which can be a potential takeover candidate in a further consolidation for the sector. Otherwise, it is better that you, if from a portfolio perspective, stick with the largest like Ultra Tech, or if you want to take a bet on those which are growing the most, then maybe Bharat is something that you could be looking at.
Yes.